Kyla and I are very happy to hang around for 10 minutes or so at the end of this webinar. So if you've got any questions you'd like asked that maybe you don't want to ask in front of anybody else, or any very specific things you'd like to discuss, just hang around and we'll have a chat to you guys at the end. So Kyla, I think we should get going, don't you? So let's introduce ourselves and say a formal welcome to everybody for coming along to find out about the Big Debate Club this afternoon. My name is Sam Evans. I'm the head of programs at Smart School Councils, a sort of democracy fan and primary school teacher by trade. And I'm here with my colleague, Kyla.
Yep. Hi, everyone. It's good to see some sort of familiar names out there, but I'm Kyla Patterson. I'm the membership manager at Smart School Councils, and my experience is teaching in secondary. Yeah.
Thank you, Kyla. And this is our agenda for the next half an hour. It's fast paced. There's lots of things to cover. But what I will say at this stage is that we'll post links to everything that we're sharing with you in the chat box, so you don't have to feel like you need to screenshot or take notes as we go along. So we're going to talk to you about who we are if you've never met us and our organization before. The second part we're going to talk about is why bother, which is not an existential question, I promise you. It's a question about why we bother doing debate and RSE in school. We're going to introduce you to the Big Debate Club, and then we'll talk about next steps and some exciting projects we've got coming up. So, Kyla, I think you're going to start us off, aren't you, by talking a bit more about who we are and setting the scene for why we think that the Big Debate Club is really important. So over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Sam. So just a bit about us as an organization. So Smart School Councils is a teacher-led charity that was founded about 5 years ago by our colleagues Greg and Asher, who are a youth worker and a policy advisor for the Department for Education. And our mission as an organization is to help every child lead change through pupil voice and democracy. And a few of you know us through the Smart School Council program, which is a whole school program that is dedicated to pupil voice. And on that program, we have over 300 schools across the UK and abroad as well. And then this other program that we've been focusing on this past year in particular is the Big Debate Club, which you're all here to learn just a little bit more about. And the Big Debate Club, what it is, it's a guided debate tool for 6 to 14-year-olds. And over 2021, which I still can't believe it's 2021, but over 2021, we've had over 45,000 young people use the Big Debate Club, which is massive and we're very excited about. But the reason that we're here is to talk about the Big Debate Club and the importance of it. And the reason that Big Debate Club exists is that we think that young people should be using their voice and developing oracy skills through debate in school. And we recognize that schools have lots of ways, and teachers, promote oracy in different ways. But we think that schools and the education sector can and should do more to help this. And we've got 5 reasons why we think that there should be a bit more support when it comes to oracy skills and debate in school. And the first one is that we think that it can be quite hard to engage students in debate when it comes to difficult issues. Another thing that we tend to find that with the oracy skills in debate is that it's a lack of, there tends to be a lack of time dedicated to building on these skills and opening up into debate activities. And there's also not a lot of active support in schools to keep those activities and those skills going. When it comes to debate activities and oracy skills, it also tends to be very dependent on a particular keen member of staff to support those activities and get them going. And this fourth bit, which is the most important to us as an organization, not just, through the Big Debate Club, but also through our core program, is this idea of the usual suspects. So debate activities we find are mostly open to a group of students who tend to get involved in lots of different things. Students who build those oracy skills, who get involved in debate activities, are a very sort of select group of students. And we want to make sure that there's things in place to open up those activities to all students, not just a select few. And this fifth bit, which comes up this past year, as we all know, social distancing policies. It can be quite difficult to, engage students in big discussions across the school and even outside of school when we can't all get together and meet up in that way. Now, when it comes to debate activities and oracy skills, there's actually a lot of research around, the importance of supporting them and why we should support them in schools, in the UK in particular. So the University of Roehampton has come out with some research that shows that England actually has one of the worst class divides when it comes to young people taking part in debate activities, which is not good and something that definitely needs to be addressed. There's also research that's been put forward by the University of Roehampton, not by the University of Roehampton, excuse me, by the Education Endowment Foundation, which brings us to this question of why we should bother with supporting debate and oracy skills. So on entry, disadvantaged children, spoken language development is significantly lower than their more advantaged peers. And those gaps grow as children move throughout school. So they widen from just a few months at the age of 6 to 5 years difference by the age of 14. And why we should be particularly concerned with this is not only are those numbers a bit shocking, but also that, oracy skills and the ability to debate are very important, those communication skills, to pupils' futures. And on leaving school, children who have poor communication skills are less likely to be employed and more likely to suffer from mental health difficulties. So we want to make sure that we're addressing these issues and building on those skills because it's important to our pupils' futures. And it's something that we should be particularly invested in as educators. So Sam's then going to take it over from here, telling you a bit about what we do to help support this.
Thanks, Kyla, and thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate that. It was good, I think, to have the scene set for us as to where the Big Debate Club sits in our sort of collective response to some of the challenges that our young people face as educators. So the big picture then with this project and what we're really excited to share with you is that we're trying to help schools with a simple, a guided and engaging way to hold weekly debates to boost oracy skills amongst your students, and with a particular emphasis for those who don't typically get involved. That is what the Big Debate Club is all about. The history of the debate club is very interesting. Some of you may know it. I won't touch on this for too long, but I think that it's good to say that the idea for this project came from the first lockdown, if we can think back to that a year or more ago again, and when Greg and I at the time were thinking about how our organization exists to support young people in school, and suddenly when schools closed, our activities ceased and we felt a bit purposeless, I guess, and recognized that I suppose we could have taken furlough and disappeared, but knew that there was still a need to help young people. You can think of, I'm sure I can from when I was teaching, so many young people who, when they come into school, get influences and get experiences that they wouldn't otherwise get. And we were really concerned about what would happen to those young people when they were left at home, particularly in the area of discussing their thoughts and their feelings and their reactions to this huge threat and this huge period of turbulence that maybe they wouldn't have conversations about otherwise. So we came up with a quite sort of punk YouTube live way of encouraging young people who don't typically get involved to get involved in debate. We used to refer to it rather as the sort of Joe Wicks for democracy and debate. And since those very sort of humble origins, we get to what is, I think, at the moment, a very slick and very engaging activity for schools in which, as we've said a few times now, I think 45,000 young people get involved in a regular basis. This just harps back a little bit to, I think, to some of our punk days, where you'll see some horrendous beards and hair combos from Greg and I from when we weren't able to access any hairdressers. But we started off with a very big focus on the pandemic and how we could ask questions to get young people to share their views on it, to feel like that they have a say over what's happening. And as such, that those conversations support an improved position in their mental health. So what is it? So every Monday, a new big debate is put on the Big Debate Club website. Any class, any family, or any group of people can get involved. All you need to do when you get onto the screen is pick the name of your school, and then you're guided through a 10-minute debate with a quick starter activity to warm you up and some context for that information. So the idea here really is that there's no prior knowledge necessary really to the debate beginning itself. We'll get young people's minds warmed up, we'll explain everything they need to know, and then get them sharing their views on a subject that they will already care about, as is likely the case. Pupils then sort of take part in a 3-minute debate, and after the debate, they enter their vote, which means that we get a sense of the national picture on that particular subject. And they also get an opportunity to explain their reasoning as well, which I think is key, as to why they voted in a particular way and what the discussion was like that they've had. What difference does it make? Well, I think that if it's embedded into a school and its habits, or even at home and in a family life, then there are a number of things that you can expect to see. One is that it's an opportunity for explicit skill development in areas of oracy, of compromise, of debate, things that sometimes sit on the periphery of curricula and need opportunities to be brought in. They are regular opportunities to discuss the world and issues that really matter to young people, which will happen throughout, I guess, a balanced curriculum, but even more opportunities is good for that, I think. It's a structured approach to help with inclusivity, and this is the point that Kyla made earlier on that we feel very strongly about. It is designed to help disadvantaged voices, voices that are ones that find it harder to communicate their views, designed to help them particularly get involved. And it's engaging and it's fun, and it's a way, I think, for us to think about citizenship and what it means to be an active citizen in school, and also ties to things like British values and some inspection, I suppose, areas for our school life. So I guess the next question, Elise, is well, how do we use it? And there are a number of ways that lots of schools are already using it. And if you're thinking about it at the moment, then this is what I would share with you. Lots of schools use the debate itself as a starter activity to get students going at the start of the day, to get them warmed up and to get them discussing their views. Lots of schools use it as a part of a standalone PSHE style lesson that they might put into their regular timetable. Lots of schools use it as a substitute or an addition alongside assemblies in school, particularly maybe if there's a class assembly or an assembly on a subject that links to one of the discussions or the questions that we're asking. It's used by other schools as a part of after school activities and clubs. This is most frequently used in like debating clubs, which I recognize not everybody will have, but there are other comparisons or other links that can be made there for sure. And then the way that we started the Big Debate Club was by encouraging parents and young people to have these discussions at home, which is still a really important, I think, part of the armory of how this debate is used in some of our schools. And by our schools, I'm not talking about people on the Smart School Council program, I'm talking about schools who use this, who are not necessarily a part of our broader programs, will send it home to encourage that interactivity between parents and young people in the home. So, what debates have we got coming up? This is a good question, and it's one I'm actually quite excited to talk about, because I guess the team, Kyla and I and Greg, have been working really hard recently on a special project that we've been keeping very close to our chests, and now have today the first opportunity to talk about, which I'm excited about. I'm sure Kyla is as well. And it's with the Houses of Parliament. So coming up next week in the first one, and then across the rest of this academic year and into the next academic year. The Restoration and Renewal team for the Houses of Parliament have worked with us to set a series of debates to help young people feed into, I think, what is one of the most extensive and one of the most interesting projects to have undertaken to the Palace of Westminster and the Houses of Parliament for a long time. So, what is it? The Restoration and Renewal team, they want to know what young people think about updating the Palace of Westminster, a building that you'll probably better know as the Houses of Parliament in London. For a bit of context, it is a staggering building. It's one of the most iconic and well-recognized buildings in the world. However, it is falling apart faster than it can be fixed. And it's in urgent need of repair. If you've seen the news recently, you'll have probably seen lots of scaffolding up and around the building and work that is already underway. Well, the Restoration and Renewal Sponsor Body, part of the Houses of Parliament, I suppose, they are undertaking a series of works to develop and improve the Palace of Westminster. So it's set up to restore and protect the palace. And in that process, as they set about how they're going to do this, they want young people to directly feed into that process so that they can help them work out what the best plan is for restoring the building. Now, these specific debates come with tailored lesson plans for primary, secondary, and SEN provision, and activities that are fully resourced within them to help support what is probably a bit more of a complex debate than we've used before, but one that is just as engaging and interesting to get involved in. I think, Kyla, you're going to pop in the chat for our teachers to see, aren't you, some examples of the primary and I think the secondary lesson plans for you to have a sort of get a sense of what they look like. There's some images of them here. It's really built around the idea of using these new specific debates around the Palace of Westminster and helping to shape how its restoration and renewal is undertaken through a 1 hour style PSHE lesson. That doesn't mean that all of the schools who will get involved in this will use it in that way, and that's absolutely fine. It may be the case that it'll just be the debate that they want to use, and it's an activity they use as a starter or as a part of their more sort of broader curriculum, which is absolutely fine. But I think it's really key for us to share with you at this stage about how it's all of the thinking around making this a really engaging activity has already been done. So if you think this sounds great, and I think it is, and in conversations with teachers I have quite a lot, when you turn around to a group of students or to staff and say, hey, we've got an opportunity to get involved in this historic project that's been undertaken with the home or the seat of the UK's democracy, people want to get involved in that, and it's quite an exciting prospect. So how can you get involved? Well, it's very simple. You need to visit thebigdebateclub.com, the link that will be in the chat box again that Kyla's about to share, and then just need to pop your email in the sign-up box, and then we will send you every Monday the debate that is live for that week. And then in the weeks that we're going to be doing restoration and renewal questions, there'll also be links to where you can find the lesson plans, the supporting resources, the slide decks, all the things you need to engage young people in that question. And then one of the other things that I think is important to see if you are a social media user is to follow the Big Debate Club on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, because there's going to be lots of content that's going to be shared on there over the course of the next couple of weeks, and does so at the moment, in terms of the results for questions, opportunities to see what other schools are doing with their debates, and also to get sort of amplified by the Houses of Parliament and their social media channels when we start discussing some of the questions around the restoration and renewal of the palace. So that's all of the things that Kyla and I want to say. So I guess if there are any questions at this point, or have any questions that have come up so far, we'll look to answer them for everyone. If you've got a question, you haven't submitted it to us yet, now is absolutely the time to do that, because we would much rather the opportunity to do it now. But like I said at the start, also, we have a 10-minute period sort of from 4 o'clock where Kyla and I are going to hang around in the Zoom. So if you want to have a chat with us a bit more about this project, we can have a sort of one-to-one conversation there. So let's just check in with Kyla, see how she's doing. Do we have any questions, Kyla?
Yeah, we have a question about how young people hear about the results.
Cool, do you want to answer it?
Yes, I'll take that one. Yeah, so the way that this works is that the debates are live for a week. So from Monday morning until Monday morning, the next Monday morning. And at the end of the debate, the result is published on the website. So we send out the results through email to everybody who has given us their email for the Big Debate Club. And young people can then see whether or not what they voted for, what they answered had has won in the big debate, and they can see how many people have gotten involved in that debate and from what region of the UK they've also gotten involved. Any other
Nice, yeah.
questions?
Thanks, Kyla. That was a good answer. I was just going to chime in with that. I think one of the really interesting things about the results from these debates is that we can share with your students the bigger picture of national opinions. It's not just saying, hey guys, this is what we voted for as a school and isn't that great? We had this discussion, this is the one that won with us, but also how our results compared to young people's opinion across the country as a whole. Is it different? Is it the same? And what insights that can provide. So I think that's really cool. But good question, Bill. Thank you very much for asking it. Were there any more, Kyla?
There's no other questions yet, but I do just want to say one thing about the Big Debate Club. So although we're really excited about the Restoration Renewals project that's coming up, and we're very excited to share all of those resources with you, we've got a whole host of debates coming across summer term. So each week there will always be a new debate for your students to get involved in, ranging in a whole host of topics. So from restoration renewal and the House of Parliament, which is very exciting, to debates like the one that we have live this week, which is, can one person change the world? And we've got close to 1,000 students participating in that debate this week. And we're very excited, to share those results and continue to see students engaging in debate in that way.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kyla. I couldn't agree with that more. Okay, folks. Well, we'll let you go slightly early if that's the case, which was making me laugh internally, because when Kyla and I were rehearsing the webinar earlier, I was under strict instructions not to go on too long about the history of the Big Debate Club and how proud of it that we are. And now I've been so succinct, I've saved you all 8 minutes, so maybe I'm going to talk more eloquently about it next time. But yeah, thank you very much for coming along, folks. I hope that this has been really informative. I hope that you feel that the Big Debate Club is something that you can get your students involved in, that your school will be interested in, because I think there's a lot to be gained from it within. If you haven't yet done so, I'd really encourage you to go onto the Big Debate Club website and sign up to get those prompts on a Monday morning, so you know what the debate is for that week, and then get everybody involved. We'll pause now and let everybody who wants to head off, and thank you very much for your time. After about 30 seconds or so, I'll come back in again and start talking, and if there's anyone that wants to have a one-to-one chat, we can take it from there. But thank you very much for your time, folks. It was really great. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Sandy. Great to have you with us. And thanks, Bill, as well. Yeah, so we're going to pause for 30 seconds or so, and if you're still here in 30 seconds, that's you telling us you want to have a chat.